Book of Heaven, Volume 16, Part 3. September 2nd, 1923. Luisa suffers the pain of humanity separated from God, in addition to the pain of the privation of Jesus. The nations are preparing for war. I felt very embittered because of the privation of my adorable Jesus. More so, since making himself seen like a flash, he would draw me outside of myself, and while he would escape me like a flash, I would be forced to see tragic and gloomy things, rumors of wars, as if they wanted to involve Italy, leaders of governments approaching other leaders, offering sums of money to make them fall into the net of the war. From the month of January of this year, when one day I was in great suffering, Jesus had told me that he was making me suffer in order to give light to the nations, that wanting to make war, wanted to drag others along. What pain it was for me to go outside of myself, to see people suffering, another war field being armed, and not to have my Jesus together with me to say a word to him, to snatch from him, even at the cost of pains, mercy on the unfortunate humanity. So I spent several days in this state, and my heart could take no more. I felt not only the pain of being almost without Jesus, but another pain, so hard that I myself am unable to manifest it. Then he made himself seen for just a little, clinging to my heart, seeking refuge and rest, for he could take no more. And I clasped him to myself and said to him, "My life, Jesus, tell me, where have I offended you that you do not come? What is this pain, on top of the pain of your privation, that lacerates me and separates me from you?" And Jesus, all afflicted, told me, "My daughter, have you perhaps placed in anything your will to offend me, that you fear I have withdrawn from you?" And I, "No, my Jesus, I want to die rather than displease you." And Jesus, "Well then, a daughter who has always been with her father must be attentive on knowing the secrets, the manners, the reasons for the way he deals with her. I have been with you for so long, and you still do not understand the reasons that force me to withdraw? But you have understood them, also from the grave evils you saw, when I would come to you like a flash, and drawing you outside of yourself, I would leave you alone, wandering around the earth. How many tragic things have you not seen? And on top of this, the great preparations for war that the nations are making. Last year, France, by moving against Germany, sounded the first bell. Italy, by moving against Greece, sounded the second war bell. Then another nation shall come, that shall sound the third, to call them to the fight. What perfidy, what obstinacy! This is why my justice, unable to bear so much obstinacy any longer, forces me to withdraw from you in order to be free in its course. And the pain you feel in your heart, in addition to the pain of my privation, is nothing other than the pain of humanity separated from me. Indeed, it is a horrible pain, so much so that my heart writhed and agonized. And now, because of the bonds you have with me, you remain bound to the whole human family, and are forced to feel this pain yourself. The human generations, with their horrendous sins, separating from me. Courage, do not lose heart. Let me give free course to justice, and then I shall be with you again, and we shall pray and cry together over the lot of man, that he may no longer go wandering on earth, but return to his God. September 6, 1923. When love ceases, sin begins. The reason why Adam sinned. I felt petrified with pain because of the privation of my sweet Jesus. It seems to me that even his flashes, his shadow, keep decreasing. My only support in his privation, that like little drops of dew, sustain the poor little plant of my soul, burned and withered by his privation, giving it a thread of life so as not to let it die. However, I was all resigned to his will, and I tried as much as I could to continue my interior acts, as when I used to take flight together with Jesus in his most holy will. But oh, how differently I would do them. I would do them badly, not finding everyone, so as to give to my God for all. Now I was saying in my interior, my Jesus, in your will I unite my thoughts to yours, and since your thoughts circulate in each created intelligence, I want each thought to draw from yours the love of your intelligence, in order to place each thought of creature in the flight of love. This flight reaches up high into heaven before the Supreme Majesty, and blending with the eternal love, draws the love of the most holy Trinity upon earth over all creatures. Now, while I was doing this and other things, my adorable Jesus moved in my interior, and sighing, told me, "My daughter, you cannot be without me. Even less can I be without you. Everything you feel in your heart is I. Your yearnings, your sighs, the martyrdom you suffer because you are without me, is I. It is my heartbeats that reverberate in you, that bring you my pains, that hide me from you. And this is why, when love can endure no more, surpassing justice, it forces me to unveil myself." And as he was saying this, he made himself seen. My God, who can say how reborn I felt? Then he added, "My daughter, you gave me the dwelling within you on earth, and I keep you in heaven, inside my heart. So while you are on earth, you are with me in heaven." The divinity delights with the little daughter of the Supreme Will, having her in heaven with them. And since we have our little daughter in heaven and on earth, it is not worthwhile for us to destroy the earth, as justice would want to do, and as creatures deserve. At the most, many cities shall disappear. The earth shall open chasms at several points, making places and people disappear. Wars shall decimate the creatures. But out of regard for our little daughter, we shall not destroy the earth, having given to her the task of making our will live on earth. Therefore pluck up courage. Do not lose heart too much during my absence. Know that I cannot last too long without making myself seen. I myself cannot do it. And you never cease to love me. Never. Not only for yourself, but also for all our dear brothers. In fact, do you want to know why Adam sinned? Because he forgot that I loved him, and he forgot to love me. This was the first seed of his fall. Had he thought that I loved him very much, and that he was obliged to love me, he would never have decided to disobey me. So love ceased first, and then sin began. And as he ceased to love his God, true love toward him also ceased. His members and powers rebelled against him. He lost dominion, order, and became fearful. Not only this, but true love toward other creatures ceased, while I had created him with the same love that reigned among the divine persons, by which one was to be the image of the other, the happiness, the joy, and life of the other. This is why, in coming upon earth, the thing on which I placed greatest importance was that they love one another as they were loved by me, in order to give them my first love, to let the love of the most holy Trinity hover over the earth. Therefore, in all your pains and privations, never forget that I love you very much, so as to never forget to love me. And as daughter of our will, you have the task to love me for all. In this way, you shall remain in the order, and shall fear nothing. September 9th, 1923. The divine will is hell for the devil, and he knows it only to hate it. I still felt some fear that, who knows, it might not be my adorable Jesus who deigned to speak to me by manifesting to me so many sublime truths, especially on the divine will. But the enemy, in order to deceive me, and while it seems that he flings me up high with so many truths, he then hurls me down into the abyss. And I said to myself, my Jesus, free me from the hands of the enemy. I don't want to know anything. All I care about is to save my soul. And blessed Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, why do you fear? Don't you know that the thing that the infernal serpent knows the least about me is my will? In fact, he did not want to do it, and by not doing it, he did not know it, nor love it, and even less did he penetrate the secrets of my inscrutable volition in order to know the effects and the value of my will. And if he does not know them, how can he speak of them? Even more, the thing that he abhors the most is that the creature do my will. He does not care about whether the soul prays, goes to confession, receives communion, does penance, or performs miracles. But the thing that harms him the most is that the soul do my will. In fact, as he rebelled against my will, so was hell created in him. his unhappy state, the rage that consumes him. So my will is hell for him, and every time he sees the soul who is submitted to my will, knowing its qualities, value, and sanctity, he feels his hell being doubled, because he sees the paradise, the happiness, and the peace he lost being created in the soul. And the more my will is known, the more tormented and furious he becomes. So how can he possibly speak to you about my will, if it forms his hell? And if he did speak to you, his words would form hell in you, because he knows my will only to hate it, not to love it. And what is hated never brings happiness and peace. And besides, his word is empty of grace. Therefore he cannot confer the grace to do my will. September 14th, 1923. The purpose for which man was created was for him to always revolve around God, just as the earth revolves around the sun. I was thinking of how all things revolve around the sun, the earth, ourselves, all creatures, the sea, the plants, everyone. In sum, we all revolve around the sun. And because we revolve around the sun, we are illuminated, and we receive its heat. So the sun reflects its burning rays upon all, and we, the whole creation, by revolving around it, enjoy its light, and receive part of the effects and goods that the sun contains. Now, how many beings do not revolve around the divine sun? All do. All the angels, the saints, men, and all created things. Even the Queen Mamma. Does she perhaps not hold the first round, in which, rapidly revolving around it, she absorbs all the reflections of the eternal sun? Now, while I was thinking about this, my divine Jesus moved in my interior, and clasping me all to himself, told me, "My daughter, this was precisely the purpose for which I created man, that he would always revolve around me. And I, like sun, being at the center of his round, would reflect in him my light, my love, my likeness, and all my happiness. At each round of his, I would give him ever new contentments, new beauty, and more burning arrows. Before man sinned, my divinity was not hidden to man, because by revolving around me, he was my reflection, and therefore he was the little light. So it was as though natural that, I being the great sun, the little light would be able to receive the reflections of my light. But as soon as he sinned, he stopped revolving around me. His little light became dark. He became blind and lost the light to be able to see my divinity in his mortal flesh, as much as a creature is capable of. So much so, that in coming to redeem man, I took on mortal flesh, in order to let myself be seen, not only because man had sinned with the flesh, and with the flesh I was to expiate, but because he lacked the eyes to be able to see my divinity. This is so true, that my divinity, that dwelled within my humanity, could only unleash, through glimpses and flashes, a few rays of light from my divinity, See then what great evil sin is. It is for man to lose his round around his Creator, to annul the purpose of his creation, to be transmuted from light into darkness, from beautiful into ugly. It is such a great evil that with all my redemption I could not restore in him the eyes to be able to see my divinity in his mortal flesh, but only when this flesh, undone and pulverized by death, would rise again on the day of judgment. What would happen if the whole creation could fall short in its revolving around the sun? All things would be upset, would lose light, harmony, beauty. Each one would bump against the other. And even if the sun were present, because they would not be revolving around it, the sun would be as though dead for the whole creation. Now, because of original sin, man lost his round around his Creator, and therefore he lost the order, the dominion of himself, the light. And every time he sins, not only does he not make his round around his God, but he makes his stops around the goods of redemption that, like new sun, came to bring him forgiveness, escape, salvation. But do you know who it is that never stops in her round? The soul who does my will and lives in it. She always runs. She never stops. And she receives all the reflections of my humanity, and also the flashes of light of my divinity. September 21st, 1923. Jesus shall show the generations how Luisa's fidelity was tested by his love, by his cross, and by his will. The circle of the divine will. How it is necessary to always look inside of it, never outside. I felt very embittered because of the privation of my sweet Jesus. Everything seemed to be over for me, with almost no more hope that he would return to his little and poor exiled one. I felt my heart crack with pain, thinking that I would not see again he who, having lived life with me, formed my very life. And now my life had disappeared and was separated from me. My Jesus, how brutally you kill me. Without you, I feel the pains of hell, that while I die, I am forced to live. Now, while I was in this state, so painful, my always lovable Jesus moved in my interior, and putting out one arm, he clasped me to give me life again, and told me, "My daughter, my will wanted to make justice of you. This was necessary in order to test your fidelity, since all my attributes concur in all my works. And when the generations shall see all that I have poured into you, and amazed shall say, 'How could she not do all this, after you gave her so much?' My justice shall show the tests it made you undergo, and shall say to them, 'I made her go through the fire of my justice, and I found her faithful, and this is why my love continued its course.' Even more you must know that the first to make justice of you was my love. How many tests did it not make you undergo in order to be sure about your love? The second was the cross that made severe justice of you, to the point that my will, drawn by my love and by my cross, wanted to descend into you and to make you live in it. But my will also did not want to be outdone by my love and by the cross, and to be sure, jealous, it withdrew, making justice of you, to see whether you would continue your flights in my will without me. On hearing this, I said, "Ah, how could I continue them without you? I lacked the light, and if I would start, I would not finish, because he who, making everything present to me, would make me do it for all, making me bind all the relations between the Creator and all creation, was not with me. My mind would swim in the empty space without seeing anyone. How could I do them? And Jesus, your starting was doing, and your sorrow for being unable to finish was completing. Therefore it takes courage and fidelity. With a little bit of testing, one is always more certain and sure. And besides, if not even my Queen Mamma was spared, would you want to be exempted? Then after some time he came back again, and he made himself seen inside of me, in the middle of a circle, and he was inviting souls to go up on it, so as to let them walk on that circle. I went up on it, never to descend again, and my lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, this circle is my eternal will, that embraces the great wheel of eternity. Everything that is inside this circle is nothing other than all that my humanity did in the divine will in order to impetrate that my will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Everything is prepared and done. There is nothing left but to open the doors and make it known, so that souls may take possession of it. When I came upon earth to redeem man, it was said about me that I would be the salvation and the ruin of many. The same shall be said now, that this will of mine shall be either of great sanctity, because my will is of absolute sanctity, or of ruin for many. See, while rotating upon this circle, it is necessary to look inside of it, never outside, because inside of it there is light, knowledge, my strength, and my acts, as help, attraction, and life, so that souls may take the life of my will within themselves. Outside of it, there is none of this. Souls shall find darkness and shall fall into the abyss. Therefore be attentive. Keep your gaze always fixed into my will, and you shall find yourself with the fullness of the grace of living in my will. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 16, Part 3. Fiat.